I want to once again welcome you students to this our workshop on the topic that I share with you on the screen. It is summary writing and paraphrasing. It is what you are doing in your studies, I believe, because if you do essay writing, both at undergraduate and postgraduate level, you are doing a research essay, for instance, you are likely to either paraphrase or summarize ideas obtained from sources. So it is very important for us to learn how each one of us in this workshop are doing their summarization, rather summary writing and paraphrasing of texts. How do you do it? And if you are doing it, when you get feedback from the marker, does it confirm that as you believed that you have actually summarized without changing the original idea of the text, you have paraphrased without changing the original meaning of the text? Because that is where the problem lies. Yes, we may say we are summarizing. Yes, we may say we are paraphrasing, but only to find that we are, in fact, unfortunately changing what the original text is saying, and therefore we do not represent what the original text is saying accurately. We don't want to do that. And there I want to now give you an outline of what we did in the first semester. And perhaps if you were there, you would agree that these are things that were actually presented, topics that were presented. With regard to reading strategies and reading critically, we looked at the strategies that students should use when reading. And we also looked into how to read a text, how to become a critical reader. And there we looked at the different cognitive levels that we use, or other cognitive levels of reading in text analysis. You know, reading a text online, reading between the lines, and also reading above the lines. So we looked at those, but also we were able to differentiate between a critical reader and a non-critical reader. So those were covered in semester one. And also reading and comprehending informative text was a topic, expository text, where we looked at how to unlock a text for meaning. How do you read a text for meaning? For instance, here at university, at undergraduate, postgraduate, you are expected to do lots of reading in order to write. So before you write your assignments, this is what you will do. You would be asked to read this article or extract. But then how do you read that text with comprehension? So we looked at that, the practical steps that need to be taken in order to unlock the text meaning. How do you ensure that reading a text, you do so with understanding, right? And we also looked at other aspects of, rather other topics that are given. Writing process, we did that. Planning an academic essay was actually what we were focusing on at the time. But we looked at a number of other things, you know, related to these topics. There would be a need that a topic be expanded, and we would try and break it down so that more aspects related to that topic are brought forth so that students can be assisted. So we looked into the writing process, there's different stages that are there. and we couldn't do everything all in one rather workshop. So it was this topic that we actually had to break down so that we cover all the different stages of the writing or in the writing process. So we said in that or in those workshops that writing at undergraduate, postgraduate level, where you are, um, writing is a process. And so we had to work with the different processes or stages involved in writing that students should follow before they submit their assignments or submit their work. So we looked at that together. But tonight we have the summary summary writing and paraphrasing, as you can see there. And here we want to look at how students can summarize ideas and practically how do you do it. Show us how you do it, and let's learn from each other. And paraphrasing of ideas. So this is what we are going to be doing this evening: summary writing and paraphrasing. What is to follow in our future workshops? What you are given on the left side as topics. For instance, after today's workshop on Tuesday, because we are meeting again on Tuesday, we should look into how to organize a paragraph. Paragraphing and using sources, distinguishing between essential and non-essential information in assignment writing. So we're looking at a paragraph in essay writing. How do you organize ideas in that paragraph? Because it must be structured, that paragraph that you write. Before you submit, we do not want paragraphs that are so disjointed, but we want structured, coherent paragraphs to be written by our students, and this workshop should assist us to do that. In writing that paragraph, obviously, we are also consulting other sources to help with ideas, but then in the process of getting ideas from other sources, are you able to distinguish between what is essential and not essential in that source or text? What is it that you need to include in that paragraph, and what is it that should be excluded? As you read, can you distinguish between what is relevant and or irrelevant? What is essential information or non-essential information? Because oftentimes we find students, when they write assignments, they put into their work or assignments or their essays, if they are required to write essays, information which is not important, information which is information, but it doesn't assist them in addressing the question or topic that they are given. And so how do we get to the point where we are able to get the right information that addresses the topic that we are working on? Tonight, our workshop objectives are knowing the differences between paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting, and how to use those effectively in your writing of essays, in your writing of assignments. How do you summarize? How do you summarize information? How do you quote? How do you paraphrase? This are very important for successful writing in your studies. You need to paraphrase correctly. You need to summarize information correctly, and also include words which are used in the original text in the form of quotations in your own text. How do you do so? Or in your own writing, how do you do so? We want to unpack these things so that students are empowered and are able to apply this in their writing practices. You should also, by the end of this workshop, be able to paraphrase and summarize a text and quote from a text. You should would look back and say, are we able to paraphrase? Are we able to summarize or quote as expected in the workshop objectives? Use the appropriate reporting verbs. When you write academically, you use reporting verbs. Reporting verbs such as Ndlovu argues, or rather maybe let's say Ndovu 1999 argues or claims or states, or those are your reporting verbs. We want you to use these verbs when you do academic writing and use them correctly, capturing the attitude of the writer correctly in order to choose the right reporting verb. We don't just use reporting verbs at random. No, we are guided by the attitude of the writer so as to decide which reporting verb to use to capture that attitude that is revealed in the writing itself. Right. We also want to caution or make students aware that at university, you are indeed doing a lot of reading and writing. I suppose, I believe it should be the case. And as you do that, you are doing it in order to produce your own writing. Ultimately, we want students to write, and they're doing a lot of reading and to prepare themselves for writing their own assignments or essays. Now, in preparing themselves to write, they consult these readings. And in order to include in their own writing, in their own essays or assignments, in order to include ideas or writings and discoveries that they find in those texts that they have consulted. All right. So they are working with these ideas of others. All right. So in working with the ideas of others, students have to decide, am I going to quote this to support my argument or my writing? Or am I going to paraphrase it? Am I going to paraphrase the ideas of this expert that I am reading? Or am I going to summarize them? Or am I just going to quote verbatim? Students would make those decisions and in the writing itself, whether to include it as that idea as a quotation or as a as a as a paraphrase or as a summary. So you are reading and you get to the point where you are interested in using this relevant idea in your own essay now. So you want to integrate it in your own arguments. And so do you do it or integrate it as a paraphrase or as a quotation or as a summary? You have to, at some stage, make a decision about that. So quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing are all different ways of including work of others in your assignment. Just be careful not to plagiarize. As you quote, as you paraphrase, as you summarize, always cite the source where you obtained that information. Okay, very important to avoid plagiarism, right? And of course, we will talk plagiarism and we will talk in-text citations in future workshops, how to reference correctly information that we get or information that we summarize, we quote, we paraphrase. How do we cite it correctly? We will touch on these in future workshop where we deal with in-text referencing and the referencing styles, right? Paraphrase, how do you define this? It is where students use different words. They use different words to those used in the original text in order to express what they have read clearly to the reader, or to express it with greater clarity. student is interested in this idea that they see in the reading or in the work of an expert that they had consulted. Now they decide, I am going to use this idea, but I'm not going to use the original words of the writer. I'm going to paraphrase. In other words, I'm going to express this idea in my own words in order to express it even more clearly to my readers. And I'm paraphrasing it to include it because I find it to be essential and relevant to my answering or addressing the topic that I am basing my essay upon. Now, what do you do? What do we mean by the term paraphrase? It is to express using our own words or different words to those used in the original text in order to achieve greater clarity. Okay? Or we could say taking information from a source and putting it into our own words, as I have said. In general, as you read with me there, paraphrases are same length as the original text or information. So you don't condense the information because you are not summarizing. Here you want to express it using your own words to provide greater clarity. And it also shows, when you are able to paraphrase, it also shows that you understand the original text to the point where you are able to phrase it in your own ways or using your own words. Right. And so how do you paraphrase? It's important that we know how to execute this exercise. First, understand the original text. It's important that when you read with understanding. In our previous workshops, we said, how do we unlock a text for meaning? And reading for meaning, how do we do it? We actually discussed the important points which we need to take into consideration in unlocking the meaning of a text. But then this is, or that meant, reading for comprehension. And here, to paraphrase, indeed, you need to understand very well the original text. You need to understand what the writer is saying there. Perhaps you need to read it multiple times to ascertain understanding. And also, writing that information once you have understood it. Write it using your own words. Write it using your own words, using different vocabulary, using synonyms, using different structure, sentence structure, changing the word order. In that way, you are paraphrasing. You don't want to end with the same words which were used in the original text. No, you want to use as many new words of your own as possible, new vocabulary of your own as possible. And you also want to make sure that the sentence structures are also changed and you come up with your own word ordering. And in that way, you are able to provide clarity to the original text using your own words, expressions, sentence structures, and word ordering, vocabulary, all of that with the intention of providing even greater clarity to the reader, and also ensuring that you proving to the reader that you really understood what the original text meant. So make sure you understand before you can express that idea or information in the original text using your own words. Right, and the next thing you need to ascertain is this, is that the original, point number 3, that the original ideas are accurately represented in your own version. Or maybe not version. Let me put it this way differently. You want to make sure that as you use your own words, you do not lose the original meaning of the text. Don't kill the original meaning and replace it with your own new meaning. It is important as you paraphrasing, as you use new words or own words, own vocabulary, own sentence structures. As you do that, own synonyms, as you do that, it's important to remember that you do not want to change the original idea or the original meaning provided in the original text. So the words used in the original text and your own words are going to be different. However, the idea would still remain the same. The meaning would still remain the same. All right. So that is what point 3 means. It says next, compare your paraphrase to the original to ensure you have accurately represented the main ideas, haven't copied, or rather you have not copied phrases and have maintained the meaning. In other words, you have not killed the original, the meaning contained in the original text and replaced it with a new meaning, because once you do that, you are losing the whole idea. Finally, cite the source. Where did you get, even if you have used your own words, the idea is still not yours. It is expressed using your own words, but it is still not yours. It's a paraphrase. So you need to do what? Cite the source of the information to avoid plagiarism. You need to provide the citation at the end or somewhere in the paraphrase. Note that you need, as I've said in my introductory remarks, that you need to identify or find the attitude of the authors. What is the author's attitude in this text? Is he argumentative? Is he critical? Is he explaining something? Is she agreeing to something? What is the author's attitude? And once you have also learned or you have found or identified the attitude of the author, you want to capture that attitude accurately with the correct reporting word or phrase or verb. In other words, you would say, Ndlovu, 1999, page 10, concurs with the view of, you see that? Or Ndlovu, in brackets, 1999, page 20, supports the view. In other words, he agrees. So you have detected the attitude in the text, and you are capturing that attitude correctly so in the reporting verb that or phrase that you are using. Remember, this is writing essays. This is writing or producing academic texts. Or depending on the attitude of the author, and I'm hoping students are able to understand what I am actually saying here. Depending on the attitude, it could be that the writer, the original writer, is stating something firmly in the original text. So you would use the reporting verb assert. If he's stating something or is emphasizing something or stating something emphatically, you would say is declaring, is if he is asserting with proof, you would say he's alleging. It depends on the attitude. Or if he is disputing in the face of controversy, you would say he is contending. If he is stating something to be true when it is open to question, you would say he's claiming, or so-and-so claims that, or as so-and-so claims, depending on the attitude there. So you have explained, you have proclaimed, you have affirmed, hypothesized, surmised, believe. Those are all, or argues, these are all attitude verbs that you may select when to use when reporting the attitude of the writer correctly in your essay writing. Okay, in your essay writing. Remember, I've spoken about paraphrasing, and I've defined defined what to paraphrase is, or what it means. And so let us do an activity, and it is an activity given on your screen where you are going to paraphrase. Remember, this is not about reducing the number of words. The number of words may be more or slightly lesser to what the original text words number is. But the idea there is to express this text, the original text, in the language, rather in the words and vocabulary of your own. Remember to use synonyms. Remember to use different word order. Remember to use different sentence structure. The paraphrase must consist of words which are more or less equal with or to words used in the original text. Remember, you are not summarizing, you are paraphrasing. So this is an activity that you should do. In the original text, it says any list of health priorities will be long and subjective because the information needed for rational decision is not available. There is good data or data that health services can be significantly improved in their efficiency and safety through research. Now, you write here, the thing is innocent, that health records that are important can take time because the logic details required is not accessible. Health systems have a potential to drastically do better. And then Lindiwe writes, due to the shortage of knowledge, the well-being will be escalated to ensure that there is changes that are provided for protection via the source of information that will be provided. All right, fine, I get it. Let's go back to the original text for understanding. This original text, remember I said this, how to paraphrase. First, thoroughly understand the original text, okay? We want to understand what we are reading, the original text. Read it multiple times to ensure that you indeed understand. This is what you do when you are paraphrasing, and you are going to use paraphrases in your assignments. Then write the information in your own ways. This is what you did. And then you compare your paraphrase and with the original text to ensure you have accurately represented the ideas in the original text, and to ensure that you have maintained the same meaning. And then finally, you will cite the source of information where you obtained that idea. Now, in the activity here, you say health records. Okay, before I read your paraphrases, let's look at the text, the original, for us to understand what is actually said there. Now, here the text says that that there is a shortage or lack of information. Here it says needed for rational decision is not available. In other words, the information needed for making decision is about what? About health priorities. Now, because there is no information available which will help in making decisions about health priorities, we end up having a long list which is subjective, which is not giving us information which is satisfactory. It's a one-sided kind of list which is leaving out other things which are important. Why? Because the information is not available. In other words, information that we need to make decisions about health priorities is not available. And what do we end with? We end with a long list which has a lot of health priorities. And that list is not giving us all the things that we need or the important things that we need as our health priorities. This is what this takes a sentence, the first sentence is saying. It's what attitude can we get there? It's, in fact, the attitude of the writer is what? He is stating. He's saying something. He's stating. So the writer states that you've seen what I've done. The writer states that there is lack of information, shortage of, rather, there is lack of information which is needed for decision making, for good decisions to be made about health needs, because in the next sentence, because there's no data, there's no good, pardon me, because there is no research. All right, let me read the second sentence. It says, there is good data that health services can be significantly improved in their efficiency and safety through research. So basically what the writer is saying is that if we have research done on health priorities, then health services will improve. If we have research done, investigations done about health priorities, then we will have ability, or that research will enable us to make good decisions, leading to what? Leading to an improved health service. I know I've used the words that are there, but I'm doing this in order to get us to this point of us thoroughly understanding the original text. We need to do it so that we do not change the original meaning. This part here is very, very important. It says here, point number 3, next, compare your paraphrase to the original to ensure you have accurately represented the main ideas. You have not copied phrases and have maintained the meaning. In other words, you have not changed the meaning. Okay, yet you have used your own words. You have used your own synonyms, your own vocabulary in order to express the original text using your own words. If you can do it very well, you will be able to write excellent assignments or essays that are using ideas obtained from other sources, and you are expressing those ideas using your own words, and you provide citations. You cite the source from which you have obtained that information. All right. So looking at the responses that you have actually given, and I really appreciate, and I look at innocence. It says health records that are important can take time. Of course, they can take time because the logic details required is not accessible. So in fact, it's not accessible. I think it's in the place of available. But the original text says it's not available. So accessible and available are not of the same meaning. If you say it's accessible, it means it can be reached. If you say it's not accessible, it means it cannot be reached. But then available is not there at all, is what it means. So we need to check if our new words or vocabulary or synonyms are capturing the original text accurately. Okay, so check that. But I really appreciate the contribution that I am seeing here. And it goes on to say health systems, or in other words, health services. All right. Health systems and services, think the synonym or the vocabulary that is used there can be altered a bit to represent it much more accurately. Okay, so you say health systems have a potential to drastically do better, to significantly, drastically, I suppose. Okay, but I think what we see, Innocent, is you do have an idea. When we paraphrase, we use our own ideas, but, or rather, not our own ideas, rather our own ways. But I want to say, be careful that you do not change the original meaning when you do so. But,
sorry to intervene, said.
yes, yes.
That one is for Lindiwe, it's not mine.
Or the first one that I'm reading.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Lindiwe. Sorry. Sorry, Lindiwe, to you as well. Sorry, Innocent. So the second one is yours. Would actually just get to the second one quickly, shortly. So thank you, Lindiwe, for sharing this, and much appreciated. And we look at the second one, that is for Innocent. It says, due to shortage of knowledge, the well-being will be escalated. Okay, shortage is not available, right? That is fine. Knowledge, that is information, that is fine. The well-being will be escalated. Well-being will be escalated. Okay, maybe we'll understand it better when we read the next sentence. It says, to ensure that there is changes that is provided for protection via the source of information that will be provided. I think the second sentence there is a bit it's not on the mark. It's actually missing the mark a bit. It needs to be brought back in order that it captures the original text quite well. I know it's in the evening and we are exhausted. We come into the workshop sometimes really having to read and read it and reread it, and to get the exact meaning of what this is could be a little bit of a challenge. I do understand and acknowledge that. But let's look at what the following slide has. The original text is the one that you worked with. Now we're going to look at what stayed the same. But first, let me read the original text and the paraphrase. It says in the original text, any list of health priorities will be long and subjective because the information needed for rational decisions is not available. It's what we have read already. There is good data that health services can be significantly improved in their efficiency and safety through research. But then the paraphrase reads, Redman 2015. Remember, I actually said that you can actually use a reporting verb. And in this paraphrase, the reporting verb that was chosen is argues, is arguing. Redman is arguing. You would have come up with your own author because you wouldn't know who the author of the original text is. But then here the paraphrase reads, Redman, and there is the citation, Redman 2015 argues that due to shortage of data, it is not possible to objectively prioritize health needs, in spite of the fact that the need for such data to guide decision making and reduce risk and waste in health services is well supported by research. All right, so this is how it was done in terms of paraphrase. But the idea there is look at objective. Objective, I want to check priorities has changed to prioritize. All right. Not available is shortage of data. All right. Subjective, objectively. Okay. And rational decisions, decision making. All right. And there's good data. There's good data. The need for such data, here it is, the need for such data, for such good data. And health services, that health services can be significantly improved. Health services is there, it's actually used. And then making a decision making and reduce the risk and waste. This is improved in efficiency and safety. So it's actually replaced with reduce risk and waste in health services. Do you see that? Right. So that is how you go about doing a paraphrase, students, as you can see in the example that I have actually given. It needs more and more practice, and sometimes you need to check with a peer or someone else, or you need to check with me in a consultation forum where you say, look, I have this paraphrased. What do you think? Have I changed the original idea or not? And then this is part of my assignment, or this is part of my research. But check if I have actually changed the original meaning, or I have actually paraphrased accurately, correctly, and everything has actually been done accordingly. So I will then be able to comment on that, and will be able to practice in that way. And over time, this would be something that we would do with much efficiency and much more accurately, right? So we look at the next slide, and the next slide is what stayed the same and what changed in the paraphrase. If you look at what has been underlined, it's what actually stayed the same. It's not much that stayed the same. Only few words or phrases stayed the same. Health is also used in the paraphrase. Data or data is also used in the paraphrase. Health services also used in the paraphrase. And research is also used in the paraphrase. So a few words, really, as you can see, or phrases have actually stayed the same. Otherwise, the rest has changed. But the idea is still the same. The idea, the original idea of the importance of research in order to be able to make good decisions on issues of health is important. And so paraphrasing has actually not destroyed or killed the original idea. It still has the same kind of idea which is contained in the original text. Moving on, summarizing. Now, I think I've exhausted paraphrase. You now have an idea. What needs to happen is more practice. Read for understanding and then paraphrase what you want to use in your essay using your own words. Instead of just, taking extracts from the original text and rewriting those, it will just not be a wise thing to do, because it will be picked and they would see you are not using your own words. You're quoting chunks and chunks of extracts from the original text and using them in your essay. They wouldn't actually see the student as having confidence in their understanding of the original text. What is important is when you paraphrase it, you are showing that level of understanding, that level of engagement with the original text, and that I've understood it, and that is why I'm able to use my own ways to express the original ideas. So how do you summarize? Because it's also very important to summarize. We summarize, or rather, what is summarizing? This is an overview of the text. It's the overview. And when you summarize it, you obviously summarizing using fewer words compared to the original text. In fact, it would be very, very few words to the original text, because you are providing the main idea. You are providing the most essential information. You're leaving out other things. And so your focus is on what is the overview here, and you provide that overview as your summary. Right? It involves expressing the main idea or ideas in your own words. Okay? It does not match the source word for word. So when you're summarizing, we still want you to use your own words, just as you used your own words in the paraphrase. The difference between paraphrase and summary is that the paraphrase would use the exact or even more words compared to the original text. Whilst the summary, it will use lesser, fewer words, yet it would provide the main idea of the text and using own words. And remember, also a summary, like the paraphrase, they must be attributed to the original source. In other words, you must provide a citation there so that we do not have the problem of plagiarism. Now, why do we summarize? We summarize to produce a text to its own, or to condense a text to its own to its most important ideas. This is what we do. We're focusing on the most important ideas, and those would go into our summary. We leave out details or explanations. We leave out examples. All of those we leave. We focus on the most important ideas only. Summarizing is a useful skill for making notes, writing an abstract or synopsis, and incorporating material in assignments. So you need to summarize, because it's going to help you in academic writing. It's going to help you not to just be quoting chunks of information from the original text. So how do you summarize? Start by reading the text, highlighting the most important points, and read the text again and make notes of the main points, leaving out examples, explanations, evidence, etc. Then you rewrite your notes in your own words. Now you express the condensed version in your own words, right? But focusing on the main idea, not the whole text, like you did with the paraphrase. So you restate the main idea at the beginning and the major points. That is what you are expected to do. Now here is the activity. So I want you to do what? to summarize this time. Same, but what you do is you are summarizing. Same original text. We paraphrased it, but this time I want us to summarize. So I'm going to share with you the original text and the paraphrase. And so read the paraphrase and read the original text. And then having done so, you get to the main ideas. And then you share the main ideas as part of your summary. Okay, so we reduce the number of words when we summarize. Want to reduce, we still use our own words, but we be careful that the number of words just focuses on the main idea. Right. Thank you very much. So I have this response from the students, and let's look at it now together once again and see how best we can work around these things. And original text, we have read it. And so Innocent writes, due to lack of information, it is not possible to prioritize the health needs regardless that you have information via sources that can reduce risks and waste in health services. Okay, I think what Innocent has done, he has reduced the number of words. In fact, let me count. In the original text, how many words were used? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. Now, in the summary, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. I think is a bit low. You will agree with me that it is a bit low. It's more like a paraphrase. When we summarize, we really want to provide the main idea, but this is good. The only difference is Innocent has used more words. He needed to condense it even further and reduce and focusing on the main idea there. But it would have read this way if it were if it is summary. It would read, the necessary research into health needs to guide a rational process of prioritization is lacking, because that research into health needs is lacking. You know, that long list was not developed as a result of research. It was just developed, and it's not accurate, it's subjective. But what can help is having research on what the needs are, you know. And so the necessary research into health needs to guide a rational process of prioritization is lacking. So it's Redman 2015. So this Redman 2015 is the citation at the end. Remember, I said when we summarize, we must attribute that idea to a source that where we got it. And so you have this given the, if you check the number of words, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 words. We reduced from 30 something words to just 15 words. So this is what you do when you summarize. You want to condense it. You want to focus on the main and leave out explanations, examples, or details but focusing on what the main idea is, and that would be your summary. So basically, the number of words has to be reduced drastically in order to have it qualify as a summary. Otherwise, it would still be a paraphrase. I hope you get the kind of technical aspects that are needed when we're summarizing and when we also paraphrase. And the difference there is in terms of the size of the text is big when we paraphrase, more or less the same as the original text. But when we summarize, we reduce the number of words drastically, as you can see, and we still use our own words. Very, very important that we remember that. Okay, so we move on. Thanks for participating. Quotations. We also include quotes in our writing. We quote from other sources. And when we quote, we quote word for word. We quote verbatim. The exact words that are used in the text are going to be in our quotation. And we use a brief segment of the text, right? We use a brief segment, you'll see that, of the text, and it should appear between quotation marks, and it must be attributed to the original source. It must be attributed to the original source. So that is basically it in terms of attribution. You should always indicate where you got that information from, even if it's where are you quoting it from, where are you getting it from. That attribution to the original source is important. The citation is so important. And the purpose of quotations: when we quote, we provide a strong evidence, acts as an authoritative voice to support a writer's statement. Quoting is so important because it helps to strengthen your argument. When you use the original words used by the writer, it will really tremendously strengthen your arguments when you use the original words of the writer. So, for example, here is the quotation. Bell and Bell 1993 point out in their study of Australian American cultural relations, culture is never simply imposed from above, but is negotiated through existing patterns and traditions. So notice the words that are used by the writer, by the student. Bell and Bell point out. This is the citation. Bell and Bell 1993 point out. Point out is the attitude verb. It points out in their study of Australian American cultural relations that culture is, now they are quoting what the study about culture, when they were studying about culture, what did they find? They found that culture is never simply imposed. This is what they found from someone else. Who is this someone else? Bell and Bell. That they define culture as never simply imposed from above, but is negotiated through existing patterns and traditions. You can see that that part of the sentence is actually quoted. Now, now this is important. If the quotation is long, now the last line there, longer quotations, more than 3 lines of text, should start on a new line and be indented on both sides. I hope you understand what that means. It's, if you are quoting a longer quote, or you're giving a longer quote, it is better to, instead of writing it like this, instead of writing it like here, culture is, you see here it is integrated in the sentence that the student has written about Bell and Bell, finding on culture, on Australian American culture. But if you were quoting 2-3 lines, it would be better that this quotation be given in the following way. I'm just giving an example so that you understand what you should do with longer quotations. Okay, this is still summary. We understand what should be done with longer quotations. All right. So what we do with longer quotations is that we would write exactly what we have written here. Bell and Bell point out in their study of Australian American cultural relations. And then because it's a longer quotation, we start it on the next, or rather in the next line. And we do this. We indent it on the side. We indent it on the side. Okay. And there it is. You see, we've indented it on the side. Or this side is not of the same length as the top part. So you indent it on both sides to show that it is a quotation. But you do it if it is a longer quotation, as you have learned from this slide, that longer quotations should be more than 3 lines, should start on a new line and be indented on both sides. I tried to indent on both sides with regard to that one. But that is not a longer quotation. I was just showing you what it means when working with longer or using longer quotations. Right. And the next thing that I want you to see here is that don't use it too much, quotations. Use quotations sparingly and support your own work. Rather, use them to support your own work, but use quotations sparingly. You would rather use more of paraphrasing and summarizing, and sparingly so quotations in your writing. And make a point in your own words, then support it with a quotation or with a quote. You still have to use your own words somehow by making your own point, and somewhere in your own point, you need to support what you are saying with the quote, like what has been done here. Can you see that here, what has been done is this? I'm just going to make sure that I don't change this. I'm just getting it back to where it was. Yes. So what the point has been made here is that Bell and Bell, they point out in their book or in their article, in their study of Australian American cultural relations. So the point that they're making using their own words is that Bell and Bell did a study on Australian American cultural relations. And this is what they found. And they quote in that. So what you do is you want to write a quotation like that. Include it in your own, this is what it means. Include it, first use it sparingly, use quotations sparingly, then support it with, rather, this is what I want to say. Make your own point first using your own words and support these words in your point, or support your point with a quotation in order to show that what you are saying is actually supported by others who are saying similar things, and you can actually use quotation marks to provide that supporting evidence. And so every direct quotation should be in inverted commas or quotation marks. I'm reading here the next point. It should appear in the quotation marks. Exactly reproduce the text, including punctuation and capital letters. So when you quote, you want to quote exactly as it is in the original text. A short quotation often works well when integrated into a sentence. This is what you need to remember, to use short quotations. And if there is something you want to omit from the quotation, you can use the ellipses. those three dots there. But if there's something you want to add, this would be you as the student writing. You want to add something to the quotation, you can use the square brackets within the quotation to add it. Now, I want us to do this as a home activity. This activity which you do, and you can email. I'll give you my email address. So you email your answer to me, and I will read it, and I will make some comments, and I will then share it with you on Tuesday when you come for the Tuesday workshop, same time, 6 to 8. So the activity is this one, where you are asked to write a paragraph. You see, you write a paragraph this time in which you evaluate the merits, the advantages of ebooks as a recent development in e-technology. Use direct quotations. Now, in your answer, in your paragraph, I want to see a direct quotation. I also want to see summaries in your paragraph. I also want to see paraphrases in your paragraph. And make sure that you reference correctly or you cite correctly at the end. And then your paragraph will be sent to me. It will be emailed to me by you. So this is the activity. And I'm also giving you the next is remember, you write a paragraph based on the merits of ebooks, the advantages of using ebooks. Now, where are the advantages given? Here they are. They are actually giving advantages and disadvantages, but your focus is on advantages only. And you need to summarize the advantages in a paragraph. You need to also write a paragraph where you, based on the merits, the advantages of using ebooks, focus on the advantages, the merits, and provide evidence from the source. This is your source. And in your paragraph, use summaries, use quotations, use also paraphrases. Where would you get them from? From these texts that are given. I mean, the first one at the top is obtained from, it's from Tom T. and Dick H. 2011. And the second one was taken from Dodge 2011, Old Books of Book Lovers, right? So it was taken from there. So you can see there are different authors because these are just ideas, but they are all based on the advantages and disadvantages of ebooks. Your focus is on the merits, the advantages of using ebooks. And in writing the advantages of using ebooks, in that paragraph, you must give evidence obtained from this slide on advantages of, and in the form of summary, quotations, and paraphrases within the same paragraph. So I'm going to share with you all of this. This is what you do. Do we know the difference between paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting? I hope you do now. And can you paraphrase? Can you summarize? Can you quote? Use those in a paragraph. You are expected to do it now at home and submit in the form of email to me. And please use the appropriate reporting verb. Remember the reporting verbs I've shared with them, or rather I've shared them with you there in the chat box. They are, you can copy them and take a screenshot of the reporting verbs, take a screenshot of the activity, and take the screenshot of the text that you're going to work with. Okay, there is a question, Lindy, where noted. Yes, you may ask.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
I can
Thank you
hear
so
you.
much for the thank you so much for the opportunity given to us. We've gained a lot tonight. We really appreciate that. Even though it was just the two of us, you gave that respect to us. You gave all the information to us. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. My question is, when I am quoting, sometimes you'll find that some words are written in capital letters. like say those texts that you are giving to us, say that culture is written in capital letter. Do I take it as it is? Even though I'm going to put it like in text. I don't know if I'm putting it the correct way, because I always have that problem. I don't know if I have to change it to small letters, or I have to keep the text as it is exactly. Sometimes you find that it has dash in between. Like, how am I supposed to take the quotation?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. To answer that question, I want to go back to this slide. Thank you for the question, Lindiwe. It says here, every direct quotation should exactly reproduce the text, including punctuation and capital letters. So that answers that. So you'd begin with the capital letter. The word culture would begin with the capital. If it is at the beginning of a sentence that you are quoting, but if it is in the middle, then it will be small letter culture, because you are quoting part of a sentence, not the whole sentence. But if it begins, if it's part of a sentence that begins with a capital letter C in culture, then you would, in the middle of your quotation, have it as capital letter C. Okay, so that is why you have here capital letters must be shown as capital letters, because it's right at the beginning of, you're quoting at the beginning of a line. But if it's in the middle, it will just be small letter culture. And the punctuation should be exactly the same as the punctuation in the original text. Don't change. I hope that answers the question. All right. And yeah, so that slide answers your question, Lindy. Otherwise, this brings me to the end of the workshop. I hope this has been fruitful and quite an eye-opener to you. And where you have challenges, please make sure you drop an email or book consultation with Tony so that we can refine things that need to be refined, explain other things that needs to be explained further, so that you are able to do these things. It's important that you be able to do these things, to paraphrase, to summarize, and to code, and to do so correctly in a text. But let's see how your paragraphs would be like when you submit them prior to Tuesday next week. Thank you very much, students.